So this is the GI system, the gastrointestinal system, with the main goal being the breakdown and absorption of nutrients. So now we're going to get into the details a little bit more of the physiology. And again, main function is digestion and absorption of food. And the way it does that is that you have the GI tract motility propelling ingested food from your mouth all the way down to the rectum. Now, the GI tract has its own intrinsic motility. Otherwise, if it didn't have this, the food would just stay in your mouth and get lodged there and never leave. That wouldn't be good. So that's the first function. Second function is secretions from the salivary glands, the pancreas, and the liver, which are all part of the GI tract. These add digestive enzymes, fluids, and electrolytes, which will help you digest your food and break it down into smaller things and then be absorbed. So that's the third step. Food is broken down into absorbable basic nutrients. And then finally, nutrients, electrolytes, and water are all absorbed from the intestinal lumen into the bloodstream. So let's do another further big picture overview. And we're going to look at the functions of each part of the GI system, which we see on the picture on the right. And everything that is labeled here is part of the GI system. And so actually, and then before that, even starting before that, the eyes and the nose, which are not part of the GI system, but they help because the sight and smell of food will trigger something called the cephalic phase, which I will talk about in a second. And this will already start gastric acid secretion and salivation. Remember, the cephalic just refers to the brain. It's encephalitis, stuff like that. So cephalic phase. Next, you put you see that delicious food, cephalic phase started. Then you put that delicious food in your mouth. And the mouth is what it's going to do. It's going to break down the food into digestible pieces, and your saliva will also play a part, lubricating the food and starting carbohydrate and fat digestion. Next, what will the esophagus do? Well, the main function of the esophagus is to propel that food bolus that your mouth just created down into the stomach. Now, what's the function of the stomach? Stomach has a few functions. First of all, it's a food storage, so food goes there and it stays there. It serves as a reservoir for food, and it has a protein digestive function. It secretes two different molecules, hydrochloric acid and pepsin, both which help digest and denature proteins for easier absorption. So now, food from the stomach, we're in the stomach now, will leave the stomach and go into the small intestine. And what will the small intestine do? Well, the small intestine is where the main amount of digestion and absorption takes place. And you will get enzymes, digestive enzymes, with help from the pancreas, from the bile ducts. These help break down the food that you swallow, that delicious looking food. And then absorption of these nutrients also take place as you go down. This is the small intestine. You keep going down there, you get some digestion, you can get absorption. By the time you get to the large intestine, pretty much all the absorbable stuff has been absorbed. So the function of the large intestine is mainly reabsorption of water from the remaining indigestible food matter, and then transmitting the rest of the waste, the feces, out of the body. So that's what it's going to do. You're going to absorb some water, and you're just going to move all that other waste along. And finally, the rectum is mainly a storage. It has a storage function to store that feces and then eventually have it released. So that's the function of each part of the GI system. The other one thing I want to talk about is the small intestine. We break up into three different parts. Do you remember what they're called? They are the duodenum, jejunum, and the ileum. And the way you can remember the order of these, because that's actually important, is DJ ileum. So you have DJ Tiesto and you have DJ ileum. Duodenum, jejunum, and ileum.